Hello, everyone. Welcome to our presentation. We are Group 21. Today, we are talking about how world changed from 1962. Well, here we will present the change in the world from 1962 to 2018 in 4 dimensions: economic, demographic, lifespan, and fertility. Through a large amount of data and data analysis, we can visualize early and straightforwardly how the world is really changing. Here we can see some buttons. Through these buttons, we can go to some links about our presentation and the data source. Well, here is a year line. By this year line, we can choose the data of which year we want to see. Well, our dashboard was divided into 4 parts. Then we are going to talk about the first part. What is the distribution of population and GDP per capita? Well, here there are 4 figures that we have analysis. Well, first one is a map. In this map, it shows the distribution of the world's population by countries and information about the GDP per capita in selected year. Well, the darker the color, the larger the country's population. Here we can see China and India have the largest population in the world in 1974. Well, based on the size and distribution of the dots in the graph, we can see that European countries and in general have a relative high GDP per capita. These orange dots represent top 10 countries with highest GDP per capita. Well, this text box shows the GDP per capita of a selected country in selected year. And this figure also compared to previous year. Well, and it's dynamic, which means that it can change every time when we choose different countries and different years. This shows the population of a selected country in selected year. Well, we can see that China and India, 2 countries with larger population, but however, their GDP per capita is relatively small. We believe that in addition to countries' level of development, large population base is also a factor leading to low GDP per capita. Then this is a bar chart, shows the annual population of different countries. Through this chart, we understand that the trend of population change in most countries of the world is increasing, and only in some countries the population remains at a stable level or even decrease, especially in some developed country like Luxembourg, Netherlands. They sometimes keep in a stable level. Here is a tree map. In this tree map, all countries was divided into 7 groups, and different colors represent the different groups. We can see East Asia and Pacific and South Asia, and the group of OECD have larger population than other group in whole, like Latin America and Caribbean and others. These three groups count for most population in the world. Is a text box which shows the top 5 countries with most population. We can see In this year, 2009, these 5 countries have largest population in the world. And this is all of my part. The second problem we analyze is the change of people's lifespan since 1962. In this part, we create 3 types of charts to multi-angle analysis. Map, dynamic line chart, and the dynamic text. You can see them in this area. All of them can be changed by the filter selection. First of all, this map shows the distribution of life expectancy around the world. The darker the color, the longer the life expectancy. You can see that in North America, Europe, and Australia, people's life expectancy is very long because of the developed medical conditions and the superior living conditions. We can see the change of lifespan in each country from this dynamic line chart. So life expectancy in various countries is generally increasing. The average life expectancy of people all around the world is constantly increasing, which is due to the progress of economic development level, medical services, and healthy lifestyle, and so on. The last chart in this part is the ranking of countries with the longest life expectancy. And we can see the top 5 countries based off the year selected are always the 5 guys. From since 1983, Japan has been ranked first. The third problem we analyze is the average number of children born by mothers and the survival rate of children. First of all, in this chart, we can see that on the overall level, the survival rate of children all over the world is constantly increasing, while the average number of children born by mothers is decreasing. Now, let's look at the situation of these 2 indicators among different countries on the line chart through the selection of filters. It seems like the situation between different countries is similar to the overall situation. Finally, let's take a look at what has been found among different country groups. Interestingly, some patterns can be found among them. Countries in sub-Saharan Africa have the lowest survival rate of children born to 5 years old, while these countries have the strongest fertility desire. Countries in sub-Saharan Africa have the lowest survival rate of children born to 5 years old, while these countries have the strongest fertility desire. Okay, this is the end of the third part of the presentation.
In this session, I will share with you the relationship between GDP and GDP per capita, child survival rate, and so on. We can intuitively see which countries have higher GDP from the map. The brighter the gray, the higher the country's GDP, like the United States and China. From the heat map, we can understand the GDP ratio and ranking of each country, such as the United States first and China second. It can be clearly seen that the total GDP of the first 6 countries account for half of the world. It shows that a few countries have created more than half of the world's GDP, and most of the capabilities are concentrated in a few countries. The true chart, GDP per capita compared with GDP shows that countries with high GDP may not necessarily have a high GDP per capita similar to China here. Because of the large population on the country, the GDP of the Luxembourg, which has a highest GDP per capita, is not very high. Through the linkage, we can clearly see the changes in the annual per capita GDP compared with GDP of each country and the change in the per capita GDP with GDP of each country. From the Gantt chart, it shows the change in the per capita GDP of each country since 1962, as well as the data range that predicts the future per capita GDP of each country. We can understand the future development prospects of various countries. From this scatter chart, it can be seen that the higher per capita GDP of the country, the higher choice variety. From the line chart, we can see the ranking of the countries with the per capita GDP in 2017. We select the top 10 countries to create a top 10 country set and analyze the trend of the per capita GDP of these countries. It is found that instead of a criteria, the per capita GDP declines due to the price reduction of crude oil. In addition, more than 18% of countries have maintained a high ranking of per capita GDP since 1962, and established developed countries have been used their industries to maintain high income generating capital abilities. The GDP per capita choice wide rate child per woman life expectancy and population attributes are analyzed using tabular cluster. The key means field divides the attributes into two categories. As we can see, one is the high per capita GDP corresponds to high child survival rate, low child per woman, high life expectancy. And the other is the opposite. Therefore, after the above data analysis, it can be obtained that a high per capita GDP will have a positive impact on child survival rate, child per woman, and life expectancy. That's all is my group presentation. Thank you.